Did you know that the vast majority of Australians want to see gambling ads cut back, if not completely scrapped? Which, I don't know about you, but sort of surprises me. The fact that most Australians can agree that this advertising isn't the vibe and low-key grooms kids into gambling, which we know it does from this report and this one. It's interesting, given that we struggle to agree on a lot of things, like what city is better between Melbourne and Sydney, which is so dumb because the answer is so obvious. It's Gundagai. I mean, have you been to the... Don't want to talk about! And also, well, Australians love to gamble. Between 2022 and 2023, Australians spent $32 billion on gambling. So, is there a plan for how we could reform Australia's gambling laws? Well, yes, but also no. The plan has already been written. It's this, the Murphy Report, which came from a committee chaired by the late Peter Murphy, the former member for Dunkley, southeast of Melbourne, who sadly died from cancer in 2023. Her work in the gambling reform space was so prominent that this report is now colloquially named after her. The Prime Minister even mentioned it in his speech at her funeral. The problem is that it's sitting on the shelf, gathering dust. You see, to make these reports, groups of politicians interview people involved in whatever industry or issue they are covering, gather evidence, and collate as much information as possible. When they're done, they publish a report. In that report comes a series of recommendations on what the government should do to tackle said issue. There is a bunch of ways that the government could tackle online gambling in Australia. 31, in fact, in this report. Recommendation number 26 was a complete advertising ban over 3 years. Now, the government usually publishes a response to reports and explains what recommendations are going to be implemented. But it's been 2 years since the Murphy Report was released, and there's still no response from the government on this literal blueprint on how to reform gambling in Australia.
It's not the public that's the problem here. It's the vested interests of AFL, NRL, broadcasters, 7, 9, 10, Foxtel, in league with the sports betting companies who have got a headlock and a vice-like grip on this government.
Now that's Tim Costello, one of the country's top gambling reform advocates. He says that he can't believe a Labor government wouldn't respond to a report like this. And why wouldn't they? Well, the PM was asked this at the beginning of the month at a press conference.
Prime Minister, do you expect the new minister to proceed with the recommendations of Peter Murphy's review on gambling?
Oh, look, I expect us to continue to do work as we have. So
what is the work they've done? Well, I asked the Prime Minister's office that exact question, and here's what I got. Two things the PM's referred to here are BetStop, which is a national register that people can exclude themselves from gambling, and banning the use of credit cards for gambling, which are both great reforms, but they're not from the Murphy Report. They're from this other report that was published back in 2015. So when will the government put into action something from the Murphy Report, or at the very least, respond to it? I've put those questions to the new minister responsible, Annika Wells, as well as asked her for an interview. But here's something interesting in the Albanese government. Gambling comes under the sport portfolio, which is something advocates think is a huge conflict of interest, given that some of the biggest stakeholders in that portfolio are the likes of the NRL and AFL, who of course have vested interests, because when you punt on one of those sports, the league gets a cut of the bet placed. The AFL reportedly gets at least 30 million, while the NRL are getting around 50. Costello said the grip the sports industry has on the government is actually less about the money though. Annika Wells is also the Minister for Communications, meaning some of the other big stakeholders she deals with are Channels 9, 7 and 10, as well as commercial radio, who all claim to rely on the money, while, according to the Murphy Report, downplay the amount of exposure children have to it. The advocates want to see gambling come under the control of the Health Minister.
You might as well put, smoking and alcohol in with sport.
Okay, so where does this leave us? Well, because of the overwhelming mandate the Prime Minister has been given, Costello reckons that there won't be any serious reforms to gambling advertising, at least in this term, despite the fact that there's overwhelming public support for advertising changes. And while we all seem to know that this is a problem, and it's very easy to joke about, hell, I was making jokes about it for the first game of Origin the other night, the fact that there is a vast majority of public support and a blueprint in place for how to tackle this issue should be all that's needed to bring in reform. But $20 says that we won't see any changes without some real pressure.